I'm Mark Devine, retired Navy SEAL commander, CEO of SEALFIT, and the creator of the Mark Devine Courage Foundation's Veteran Integration Program. Today's feature on the Military to Civilian Transition Power Hour is not just a story, it's an awakening. You're about to dive into an inspiring tale of Robert Owens, 72-year-old Air Force veteran, a minister, and an endurance athlete who rode 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. Not for glory, but for a cause that's alarmingly overlooked, the silent war against post-traumatic stress disorder, which our veterans valiantly fight every day. His journey and our mission, captured in the documentary One is Too Many, transcends the bounds of human endurance, dedication, and sacrifice. It's a tribute to retired Navy SEAL and my mentor, Mark Crampton, who took his own life in 2022. Robert's journey, like many of us, is more than a narrative. It's a window into the soul of a warrior, fighting for the warriors amongst us. Prepare to be moved, inspired, and called to action. To learn more, visit CourageFoundationUSA.org. I'll see you at the end of the show.
Well, hello there. I'm very proud to bring you a special feature from someone that I literally just learned about yesterday. My name is Cheryl Cross, and I am the host of the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour, and I'm also the owner of Exchange podcast series. So I'm taking great liberty in creating anything I want, and this is one. So my special guest, I had an opportunity to go to an exclusive screening of the documentary One is Too Many. And our guest is the reason behind the documentary and the star of the documentary. You might know him as an endurance athlete. He is the author of Beyond Average and, well, just a legend. I'd like you to meet Robert Hamilton Owens. Hi, Robert. Thanks so much for
Hi,
joining me.
Cheryl. Nice to meet you again, twice in 2 days.
Thanks for sitting in your car. You've got some construction going on in your house, and you didn't want to hear Sanders in the background. So thank you.
That's right. Having some cabinets put in.
I want to focus on what our listeners are focusing on, which is their resilience as they move from military into the civilian sector. Now, I know you made this transition many years ago. You're a U.S. Air Force veteran, and I want to talk about something a little different. I really want to hone in on your documentary. I know you've talked about the story behind it and all that, but I said something to you earlier. You said it was interesting, so I'm going to push this back to you. When I came away from watching your documentary, I thought, here is one of the world's elite endurance athletes in his 70s, willing to push death. You see it as an adventure, but willing to push death in support of his friend who committed suicide. Am I right?
Now that you mention it like that, I suppose that's true.
How old are you, Robert?
You know, I'm a blazing 72.
And how far did you row in the documentary One is Too Many?
You know, we rode about 3,172 miles. And it was an interesting thing. We rode from the Canary Islands off of Africa and Spain, and we rode all the way across the Atlantic till we got to Antigua in the Caribbean. And it took 43 days. And it was a mental trip because when you're rowing a boat that goes about 2 miles an hour, and you think about rowing across the United States, 3,000 miles from New York to San Francisco, you know, you'd be out there on like the 20th day and say, well, I'm in Iowa, and I'm going 2 miles an hour across Iowa. You know, I wonder when I'm going to get to Colorado, because you're just going slowly. And then occasionally you go faster. It's a big day if you get 70 miles, and that's because you have winds at your back and they're pushing you. And it was just a lot of days to be thinking about. This is a long time to be out on this ocean rowing and having an adventure that it was thought it would be, and it really was.
There was parts of the documentary where you weren't doing so well, and I don't want to focus on that because the journey is a part of the story. What you've accomplished is really, to me, the story. But tell us about pushing your limits. This is something you have advocated for forever. Force resilience.
You know, pushing your limits is it's a term that means different things to different people. And I have been pushing those limits for 50 years. But it doesn't feel like I'm trying to push the limits. I should probably back up for the listeners. I'm an adopted kid out of an orphanage here in Orange County, and I was a special needs kid. And so my parents went down. Back then they didn't have abortion. There was all these babies you could get after the Korean War. And I was one of those kids that I didn't learn to run till I was in 6th grade. So I had those Forrest Gump kind of boots on, and my legs were all bent and ankles are all bent. And so my mom was a PE major out of UCLA, and I got her master's out of Wellesley in Boston. And she took me on as a project, knowing that I couldn't run, so she threw me in the water. And she said, if you can't run, you'll swim. My grandparents were in Laguna Beach, in South Laguna. And so I grew up in diapers on the sand, crawling around. I'd run a lot, but I crawled down the water and got in the pool. And from the earliest days, pushing the limits was just, I wonder if, David Goggins, I wonder if, or do something hard, or embrace the suck. When you start off pushing to just be normal, you find out that you're really not pushing any limits. You're just growing and you're adapting. And so your mindset on how you view life is shaped by lots of things. And for some people, pushing the limits is like, oh my God. To others of us, we don't know how not to push limits because we've been pushing for a long time to try to figure this thing out. When I went through this deal with my mom and dad and raised stuff, I had issues in my life, and I was lazy and undisciplined, and I was getting C's and D's and having all kinds of stuff. I had a sick mom with lupus, and she died, and then they brought her back to life, and so I had sort of an invalid mother for 45 years, and I just had stuff and snakes in my head. As I said on the podcast yesterday, I had poor self-worth. I didn't think I was as smart as my adopted parents. My dad's a Mensa, a genius, out of Stanford, undergrad, grad school, FBI, Army, prosecuting attorney in the war crimes trials in Manila, like Nuremberg. My mom's a 4.0 out of UCLA. My sister's a 4.0 out of USC. And I'm not thinking I'm a 4.0 in anything. And so trying to fit into this academic family and then trying to figure out how I'm fitting with friends. You're told, in 3rd grade that you're a mistake. Don't you know that you're a mistake and nobody wanted you? And so finding out how to be in the game and being normal meant pushing limits. And when I got to high school in water polo and swimming, I had a coach that was an Olympian. He was a Hungarian Olympian, and he didn't speak much English, so our high school offered him a job when he migrated from Australia after the Hungarian Revolution in '56. They jump boat, swam back to Sydney. He migrated to the United States, didn't speak much English. We needed a coach. They hired a guy that couldn't speak English, and so he began to yell at us. And he thought that all of us young kids should be Olympians. So we didn't push the limits. He pushed us. And he yelled at us in broken English, hard work beats better talent. And we're going to win league, and we're going to win Southern California championships, water polo swimming, because you're going to grow and you're going to find out that you have more in you than you thought. And so with water polo balls bouncing off your head because you think you're not doing a good job, you spend 3 years doing that and then 3 practices a day. So I was in the pool at 6, I was in the pool at 1:30, and he wanted us to come back after dinner and be in the pool at 6:30 and swim till 8. So we're putting in thousands of yards, and we're mediocre, average kind of guys, kids, but all of a sudden he says, nothing's mediocre here, nothing's average here, and you are champions, and you will win, and you'll beat better talent. And he took a bunch of kids. 2 of our kids were on the Olympic team, from our high school. He produced champions. But his mindset and the other coach's mindset was, you're not thinking right. You can do more. I'm going to push you to produce and to gain confidence that you can do more. When I got out, I knew that I was best when I was in structure. And when I wasn't in a structure, a team, workout schedule, stuff, when I floated around on my own, I got in trouble and drank too much and partied too much, blah, blah, blah. And I knew about 20 years old that if I didn't get back into structure, I wasn't going to go anywhere in life. And these two pararescuemen, PJs, I was a lifeguard at the beach at San Clemente. Talking about pushing the limits. All my water polo swim friends, I mean, you know, if you go to Hermosa High School or something, you probably lifeguard for Hermosa. At Anaheim High School, where I went, you lifeguarded for San Clemente, Newport, Laguna, or Huntington. And everybody surfed and was a beach lifeguard. So I became a beach lifeguard in a different way. My guys all said to me, "You're too young to be hired at 16, because I'm only 15 and a half. Why don't you come down and train just to see what it's like for next year?" And I said to my mom, since I didn't have a car, "Will you drive me to the beach?" She said, "You get better grades, I'll drive you to the beach." I got better grades, and she drove me to the beach. And I then began to do the tryout without anybody else around. And I practiced the tryout and got the tides down and all that stuff. And so I went and tried out at 15 and a half as a high school kid, going against kids, UCI, UCLA, USC, Long Beach State, Cal State Fullerton. A few high school kids showed up. And wouldn't you know it, that morning, I won 2 of the 3 events at 15 and a half because I prayed for big waves that would blow up pool swimmers and that they'd drown. And so, sure enough, that morning, we had these bombing waves that were touching the bottom of the pier. And the pool swimmers, you know, just went, "Oh my God." And I said, "I'm in my element. I'm a beach guy. And, you know, I can body surf past these guys coming in when they're just freaking out." As it turned out, it worked out that way. They said, you know, they gave me a popsicle stick, number 1 on it. Then they called me in the office and said, "What's the deal with you? You know, you're 15 and a half." And I went, my coach said, "Go try this thing that you're not old enough to do." And your friend said, "Go try this thing that you're not old enough to do." And so we believe in pushing the limits. We believe in not taking status quo. We believe that there are limits to be broken. So I came down here with my mom, and she drove me down and did the thing. I first place beats me how I did it, except for I body surfed past the better guys. But I came down and trained, and I did research and did a strategy on how to win. Anyway, they called me the next Thursday and said, "We've gone to the city manager, and we want you to be a lifeguard. We've got a waiver for you." And I said, "You did?" And they go, "Yeah, so you're the first 15 and a half ever." So I'm raised in an environment of, you're to break limits. You're to go past what you're supposed to be able to do. And I think about kids today who are not getting that kind of encouragement or stimulation. Mm-hmm. So when my PJ friends who were lifeguards at San Clemente, they were reservists at a place called the 303rd in Riverside, March Air Force Base. They would lifeguard the beach, but they were reservists. They said, "Owens, you have special ops in you." And I said, "No, I don't. I'm not special. Me, I got snakes in my head. I mean, I could do some things, but I'm not special ops material." And those were Vietnam days and Marchenko days with Navy SEALs and all this stuff. And they said, "No, you're just lazy. You got bad thinking and bad head. If you do what we say, we want you to go dark for 6 months, and we want to run you. We want to yell at you. We want to keep you wet and sandy. And we're going to, when Friday nights, when others are getting drunk and partying, you're going to be working out. And Saturday morning, you're going to be up early doing stairs and log PT. And we're going to develop you to go in." And I said, "I don't have faith in my faith in me, but I have faith in your faith in me. So if you say I can do this, and you want me to push the envelope and push the limits, and you want me to go beyond normal, average, I'll do it." Because these guys were head and shoulders in character and stature above all the other kids our age. Mm-hmm. They just had substance on them as these military special ops guys. They carried themselves different. I said, I wonder where they got that confidence. How'd they learn to live like, walk like that, talk like that? See all that. They were head and shoulders more excellent, more disciplined, more together, more refined, more self-control. So I went in, and we had a class of 150, and we graduated 7. And of the 7, they made me team leader. And I'm thinking, where in the world are all the good guys? were all the specimens that were starting off with us that just looked like, you know, Adonis or something. I mean, these guys were just animals, and they quit in underwater combat, or they quit in, you know, whatever we did at the time in Texas. Anyway, I'm there, and my instructor says to me, my staff sergeant, Robert, why don't you lead? And I'm always standing in the back of the line, never giving eye contact, just trying to keep my head down to stay out of the sergeant's, you know, scan of, we're going to go get Owens. So he'd come and he'd say to me, what the hell's wrong with you? Why won't you lead? I said, I don't lead. I'm not a leader. I'm just here to do my job, just to qualify, keep my head. And he said, you're a leader. And I said, I'm not a leader. He said, you are a leader. And these guys are following you. Plus, you scored higher in all the swims, blah, 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 underwater stuff than anybody else. And he said, why won't you lead? And I said, you just have to help me, because I don't think like a leader. I think like a follower. And he said, well, that's over, because we're going to pipeline and you're going to be the team leader. And if one of these guys screws up out in the pipeline, started with jump school, if they screw up, I'm going to come find you and have your ass. Do you understand me? And he put his nose on my nose, with a bunch of dip in his mouth. He spit it out, put his nose on my nose. I start to cry, those hot tears that burn, like, oh my God, what's this guy doing? He's invading my space. And he just looks at me and says, get your effing thing together. You're leading this team for the next 11 months. And so when you get to the row, there's been a 50-year career of having people say, you can't, you can. Why don't you? Nobody else does it. Why don't you? All that kind of stuff that for some of us, it's the norm to say, what am I capable of versus how old are you? And so I've been trained, you know, I've done 12 Ironmans. I'm one of the original Ironmans. So I did Ironman 1980 when we drank beers, had swim trunks. I borrowed a bicycle, had a baseball cap, and a pair of tennis shoes. Did Honolulu back in the last year that we had Ironman in Honolulu. I've done 11 since then, 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. Why? Because it seems audacious. I mean, how do you do that? You know, jumped out of all these planes and done all this stuff. And why? Because to me, the norm is you can break limits and you can do more than you think at every age group, at every decade. You don't have to act like everybody else. And the reason my book is called Beyond Average is because once I stopped thinking mediocre, survival, and average, and I let these guys get in my head and tell me that I was something that I wished I could be, that I didn't know I could be, I was amazed, like they were amazed, that all this talent began to come, because I'd never won anything. You know, I was a third place swimmer. You know, I was maybe getting a 1/4 of a water polo game. I was just an average guy, acted average, thought average, mediocre, just happy to be on a team. And I say that to the listeners and to you military guys here, because there's so much in young men and young ladies that needs to be developed. And we call it the 20X principle. I'm a paid coach at what's called SEALFIT. And SEALFIT is a CrossFit gym designed for Navy SEAL training above San Diego. You know, I'm with Divine. Divine says to me, we have the 50-hour nonstop, and don't show up. And if you do show up, we're gonna crush you. You're too old at 66 to come in here with these kids and see if you can do that. Plus, you're a flyboy Air Force guy, so you know what the hell. And I said, great. And I said, bring it. And he said, I'm telling you, Robert, this thing will kick your butt. I mean, it's a long time ago since you were special ops in the 20s, and your Ironmans, we crush Ironmans here. You know, they don't last 6 hours in our 50-hour nonstop. And so to do the right thing, I then went and trained with that group for 3 years to learn the ins and outs of having my butt kicked by Navy culture versus Air Force culture and that Navy SEAL thing. And I said, the limit is in my head. The limit is how do I think right in my training to do this stuff? It's not just physical, it's the mental game. And so when I went to Kokoro and did the 50-hour nonstop with all these 20 and 30-year-olds, I did it. And they said, how'd you do it? And I said, because the limits are meant to be broken. The limits are to show that at any age we can do more than we think that we can do. And rowing across the Atlantic, when they said, you know, this friend of mine in England said, hey, you ought to row the Atlantic. And I said, that's stupid. I mean, who in the world would row across the Atlantic? And he said, oh, we do. I just got done doing it. It's a trip. And then my friend Mark Crampton shoots himself, and Navy SEAL shoots himself, commits suicide, blows his head off. 3 days after I'm doing an event with him, we're doing the 50-hour nonstop. I'm now a coach. I've done it. I'm the only guy on staff that's done it, and now as a coach. And Mark and I do the stuff, and then he goes home after Sunday afternoon and blows his head off on Tuesday. And where did that come from? And so when the row came along, I thought, Americans don't do this. It was on an all-European team. And I'm the oldest American to have ever attempted it. And you're too old to try it. Okay, for Mark Crampton and for veteran suicide, I'm going to go back inside my game and pull out the tricks and trades of my special ops background and stuff and the Ironmans and all this stuff. And I'm going to see if I can pull this thing out with all these young people that are rowers from Europe. And again, I'm competing against myself to see what we can do when we focus and we get single-minded and we embrace the suck and know that miserable and pain doesn't kill you. It just makes you miserable, and it tells you about pain. And there's good pain, and there's neutral pain, and there's bad pain. So once you get used to your pain, I mean, it's just pain.
We're listening to Robert Hamilton Owens, and this is the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. Even though we're not talking about careers at this point, we're talking about Robert's journey in his late friend who committed suicide and suffered the hazards of PTSD. He is the author of Beyond Average and is an amazing storyteller. In fact, I told him there's no way I'm going to squeeze you into a 15-minute segment. We got to give you an hour. So this segment is 1+ hours, and it's only Robert Hamilton Owens. Go back to miserable and pain doesn't kill you. Because I said to you at the beginning of this talk, you were willing to face death. Now, maybe you just were having a bad day and the camera was on you, but in that documentary, you looked pretty bad. Talk to us about that.
It's the mental game. The mental game is you can feel miserable, just keep your head right. And so when the reason that looks terrible is we have sleep deprivation when you're rowing across the Atlantic. The longest sleep I had in 43 days was an hour and 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So I'd row 3 hours and be off 3 hours, row 3 hours, row 12 hours a day, have 12 hours off. And the 12 hours off, you have to cook and clean and do all your stuff. And then if you can, get some sleep in. When sleep deprivation hits you, then your mind wants to go. Your mind hallucinates and everything's magnified. And your emotions get tweaked and all kinds of things. When you saw me looking bad, it's because I was bad, but I was focused on what the purpose was and what I had to do to get through another day of 4 shifts. And when I passed out in that video, it was just another one of those days. Well, just one time. And I got used to that miserableness, that pain, and I just went with it, knowing that I'd wake up in an hour, whatever it was, and it'd be just enough sleep to go do another session, then you pass out again. So, yeah, you look bad, but inside I was going, I'm in the game. I've been 35 days out here doing this. I can surely do another 15 and find a way to win. And that's what you saw. And I won't talk a lot this time.
You're the guest. You have to talk. This is not the Cheryl Cross hour. But I loved that you were all pooping in buckets and, urine was hitting you in the face because there was 35-mile-an-hour gusts. I live in Hawaii. We have wind and rain and volcanoes and all sorts of weather impacts. I know from being out on a boat during gusts of 35 miles an hour, you said it, it feels like needles are going through your
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
I go inside, and I go inside to work on my mental resiliency. I want to think about my thinking, because when I lose control of my thinking, my emotions kick in and my poor thinking kicks in. My negativity kicks in. So no matter the rain hitting you in the face, the needles, I get thrown out of the boat. I'm being dragged at 2 o'clock in the morning. In I would say to the people that the seas were 3 stories high, and the waves were coming and breaking on the boat. 3 boats behind us capsized. One broke in half, and one boat, the guys were floating in the Atlantic in their life vests, no life raft, the life vest for 2.5 days until their their life vest had the radio cannon thing up to the satellite. Some freighter came by and picked them up, and they were disappeared, But they're out there floating because their boat broke in half. These waves breaks on them, and I'm watching this as an ocean guy, thinking this is a trip, and I'm underwater being dragged because this wave has completely submerged our boat, and I'm on a lifeline hanging out there at 2 in the morning with no stars, thinking, I really wanted an adventure, and I
You got
really
it.
finally got one.
You got it,
And
Toyota.
it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a panic. It was like, wow, I'm alive. I am in the middle of living. So some people exist, and some people have those moments where I'm alive, and you have moments like that where then you go back inside your head and you say, regroup, don't lose control. And you wake up, or you get back in the boat, or you put your thing tighter around your face, or you put something on your hands. The wind was so bad that when I was holding the oar, it spun in my hands and I couldn't keep it from spinning from the wind. So my blade is hitting the water, rowing, and my blade gets hit by the wind and it spins in my hand and I can't stop it. It's blowing so hard.
Wow.
It's so dark that when I put my blade in the water, I can't see my blade when it's out of the water. So I can't see the water. I can't see the blade. And I'm just making movements, hoping I'm connecting as the boat's going this way and the boat's going this way. And you go, wow, let's figure this one out.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder how long this one's going to last. And usually the storms last about 3 days. So you get, okay, now how am I going to get through this thing? I can't row because I can't get control of the blade. And I got pretty good hands. I trained for, a long time to get this thing going. And you just think, okay, if any of you read the book Unbroken, with Louis Zamperini from World War II, I mean, how did he survive out there for 75 days in that life raft? I mean, there's people that have had it worse than me, and they've figured it out. And I had to be the role model as the old guy on the boat, the old guy that, we sure we want a 71-year-old? You know, just shut up and put me in the boat. And then they're looking at me like, if I lose it, they're going to lose it.
Right.
So I'm a role model of, you're the military mental resistance or resiliency guy. And I just think I have a role model thing to do. I got to keep control, walk my mind. I'll wake up and I'll be back in the game. And you just eat the elephant one bite at a time and you don't lose it. But you learn that in the military, or you learn that somewhere, because pressure produces stuff. Pressure produces good things and bad things. And I wanted to see what that kind of pressure would produce in me, to see if all my training would still work in that kind of an environment. And I had the cause of doing it for Mark Crampton and raising money for veteran suicide. So it all played together. And some thought it was death or near death. And the boats that broke up behind us thought it was near death. But for me, I'm an ocean guy, so I'll find a way to win. And that's how we're taught. So
You are mental resilience personified. Mark Crampton, tell us more about Mark.
I think Mark did about like 11 tours. He had 28 years in. He was a chief. He was commandant of Buds. He was commandant of Sniper School. When he died, the first person I contacted was Admiral McRaven, And I emailed him because I knew they were beer drinking buddies in Bahrain, and they had these careers together for 20 plus years. And I contacted Admiral McRaven. I said, "Hey, did you know he just killed himself?" And he goes, "I just heard." And I mean, he was like a legendary Navy SEAL for 28 years in service. And he was just that kind of guy, as I said in the documentary, peaceful, sweet, nice. And then he would yell at somebody, and I would jump. And I remember one time we're yelling at some kids. We did the all-nighters together at the SEAL Fit event. So the first night we run them up a mountain. We take them 9 miles up, starting at 10 o'clock at night, and 9 miles down, run them down the hill the first night. Then the second night, they do beach PT for 9 hours. And we keep them wet and sandy from Carlsbad to La Jolla, which is about, 12, 14 miles. We run them in the ocean out. So we're two grandfathers standing there, like we're in our 60s. We're looking at these kids like, I think we ought to mess with this one, or, this one's smart. Anyway, we become real good friends. And then out of nowhere, he'd yell at some kid, and I would jump, and I'd say, "Don't do that. You scare me," Anyway, sorry. Because he was laid back, or you don't want to cross the chief. He would get your attention. So we talked for 6 years during all-nighters. We did 6 years of all-nighters together, 3 classes a year. Okay, we'll take them up the hill the first time, and then we'll put them in the ocean, and let's see who's going to do what. And we became good friends. For him to leave on a Sunday afternoon, "Hey, see you, Owens, Robert, good job," and go blow his head off, it's like, I'm smarter than that. And he never gave a clue that he had so much stuff that he had not processed, because we at SEALFIT work with PTSD with vets. So he knew the program, and he saw the vets coming through that we work with who were getting help. And he never once said, "I probably ought to be in that program." He was the guy that was helping guys. And yet he had locked away in his brain stuff that when that door opened up, all those years of what he had done and what he'd seen, when it all broke open, boom, it was too much. And he said, "I'm done." So Crampton and I'm the Air Force PJ. I'm the only PJ working at SEALFIT. We're nice to you, Owens. We're SEALs. And we became really good friends. And it was just a trauma for all the instructors to think, for all these years we missed it on Mark. We never saw it coming.
On the Navy site, I was so impressed that they put it's a bit of a bio because of his legacy in the Navy, but it says at the bottom, and I'm paraphrasing, died from the after effects of PTSD. And I thought, do I like that or not? It's true. It's true. Is this the way of the military admitting that they have PTSD, or is suicide just not talked about? What are your thoughts?
You got to blame it on something. So
Good point.
PTSD is you just put that label on there. You got pneumonia, PTSD. Oh, that solves it. It's over.
You definitely have been working on mindset. You've written a book, Beyond Average. You knew this man, and I do not want to glorify his suicide. I want to talk more about the documentary. I also know that you mentor people, because you were so gracious at the training, or not, what was it, a training event? No, the documentary last night. You reached out to everyone even during your dinner. I got text messages from you during your dinner. I'm eating dinner right now. Can we talk later? So thank you for that. I think
Sure.
my question for you is really centered on the documentary, because I am compelled to try and get the word out about this. But I want you to start this conversation with what you want, what your intent is, not what your intent was there. I get it. You're a man of adventure. You saw this as a great adventure. Death does not scare you. Right on. What is your intent for every single person listening?
I want them to know that either you deal with your issues, or your issues will deal with you sometime. Mark Devine and I did a Spartan game thing at Dodger Stadium with Joe DeSena, and we did a podcast together. And Mark and I were talking about suicide and things. And he said the hard thing is that the guys that say they don't have any problems, they have the most problems. And the reason that they don't ask for help is they think it's going to put a dent in their manhood to show any level of weakness. The guys that are the strong guys admit they have issues. The weak guys say they don't have any issues. They puff up, big peacock, not me, all good, I'll buy the next round, it's great. And we all know they're lying because they don't want anybody to dig into their stuff. And they put the persona on that everything is together, I'm good to go. So the challenge is how do we get guys and ladies to say, it's true, I got issues. And I do think it'd be wise if I work on them for my kids' sake, for my marriage, for my career, this and that. Yeah, I got stuff. Some know that I was a senior pastor. After I put guys in body bags for a long time, I ended up being a senior pastor.
Okay.
And I worked with athletes. When I look at guys, I'm looking to see, and ladies, I'm looking to look in their eyes and say, are you going to tell me the truth? Because the person who says all good is never all good. And that's a dead giveaway. I don't have any problems. No problems. I'm good. That's a dead giveaway how screwed up they are. The strong guys, as I just said before, can say, this is stuff, and this is stuff probably I'll need to process down the road. And I'm not sure how I'll do it, but I know that I have stuff inside me that's unresolved and that is a tormenting or a challenging thing. And I don't want to pass it on to anybody else. And I don't want to carry it because pain is a sickness. When you carry pain for a long time, you do stupid things. Hurt people. So how can I get this pus out of me? And it's in my head, whether it's with TBI or whatever else is, just say, yeah, I probably have some stuff. And when we put our vets together, we put them in a small group or boat crew if you're Navy. The best part is we get a vet to be the leader of that small group with a therapist, and you can't lie to a veteran. You can lie to some people, but you can't lie. A doper can't lie to a dope smoker, and a drunk can't lie to drunks and drinkers. And, vets from combat and this and that can't lie because we know you, it's us. Don't lie to us. And it's important for the listener, if you're listening to me, I care about you. We care about you. This podcast cares about you. But you can't go ahead and fake it and try to make it. Sooner or later, those thorns that are in your feet are going to come out of your skin. And you can only keep them buried with that willpower screw. Keep that thing on lockdown so long. But when it blows, like with Mark Crampton, it can blow so bad that you do something stupid and selfish and you take your life because it's all about you. And then all these people are affected. And you go, I didn't really want to affect them. I just wanted to kill me. No, you affected them too. I mean, he committed suicide on the week that his son was graduating from college. Why would you do that? Why don't you do it the week after college? Go to his graduation and celebrate it. But no, you got to do it the week of college graduation. Why? Because he was so focused and hopeless that nothing mattered to get rid of this pain. So for those of you that are listening, I want you to be honest, grow up, deal with your stuff, and then find the help. I had a guy call me this just a little while ago, Army Ranger, Special Ops. He said, I'm a tactician and a strategist, and I can't tell you exactly what I did in the Middle East. I said, no problem. I said, you screwed up? He goes, yeah, I'm screwed up. And I said, and you got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old? He goes, yeah, and I just got out. And my culture ridiculed me for getting out. They offered me major, but they said you have to do 6 years. And he said, I don't know what I want to do 6 more years to get major with a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, one. And so all of his military friends ridiculed him and pushed him out of the social circles because he was a quitter. And he said, there are combat related things and there's non-combat related things that just really suck. And I'm having to process my feelings towards the military for me making a choice that my career path wasn't going to go much better than where I think it's going to go. And my kids are more valuable to me than me doing 20 years and getting on my major thing. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm doing a podcast with you in an hour and we'll talk again. And he was outside of Fort Bragg. And I went, he has pain.
Yeah.
Wasn't a TBI, but there's pain. And how you handle your pain is going to determine your future. And I said, this guy said to me, I got a new girlfriend. I said, oh God, why'd you do that? He said, well, she's hot. And I said, well, what about your first 3 wives? Oh, they were screwed up. I said, you're screwed up because you're the one that chose them. So if you're so hot, why'd you choose duds? Because the issue is they weren't duds. You're screwed up, and now you're going to do a number fourth because you got your stuff you're still not dealing with because it's always somebody else outside of you. It's never about you.
Yep.
And he said, you can't talk to me like that. I said, I'm telling you, you're screwed up, and you're going to screw her up because you're a liar, because you won't deal. And maybe that's why you drink too much. And he goes, get off my case. So, I appreciate this podcast, and I appreciate you wanting to talk about this kind of stuff. And I want guys to grow up and look in the mirror and say, you know what? Strong guys work on their stuff. Weak guys are in denial. And you'll be so much happier on the other side as you begin a process. You don't have to do VA. You can do something else. You don't have to get on, medications. There's other ways to do it, like our programs. But you need to step to the plate and say, I probably need to talk to somebody about this stuff that's in my head.
We're talking to Robert Hamilton Owens. He is a legend in the endurance athlete world. He's living in Southern California. He's written a book called Beyond Average and has just released a documentary, which I hope you find on YouTube, One is Too Many. We're talking about the after effects of a suicide who was a dear friend, a Navy SEAL, Mark Crampton. I want to end the segment with the next 15 minutes of you talking not just about you being a minister or a veteran or any of that. I want you to talk about a call to action. Honestly, I don't want to give people a lot of information and then have them hanging. I don't want them to think, oh, that's a great little segment. I want them to do something. And I want you to be very clear with me, Robert, on what you want them to do.
Well, I know that you have military audience listening and non-military audience. The reason that we did the documentary was to raise money. We did a documentary that we hoped would touch people's hearts. And last night, a lot of people were crying watching the documentary. But I said, I don't need you to cry. What I need you to do is open your checkbook and give us some money. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that it takes money to fly these guys in to our program, fly their wives in, put them in hotels, pay their airline fares, help with babysitters, put a guy in a 1-year program to process his stuff with a paid therapist, and we pay the vet who runs the boat crew or the small group to be in contact, weekly with 12 guys. And so things were like mini groups. Things were going great. Money, men, things were happening, progress, then the pandemic hit. And after the pandemic, we're restarting. We just had a group in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Green Bay Packers adopted us for a Thursday night football game, NFL Thursday night football. The Courage Foundation was there. We came, processed. We had a bunch of vets there, did a thing, show them what we do. And we're making some progress. But, we need about $300,000 a year just to take care of, I don't know. We were doing 250 vets prior to the pandemic, paying for all their stuff, bringing them in, putting the process, all that stuff. And it just takes money to help guys who don't want to go to the VA say, we trust you. We don't trust the VA, but we trust you. I'll come in and I'll open up and talk about my stuff. So I'm hoping that if, it's nice to talk about what I do, but what I'm doing is trying to raise money for guys like Mark Crampton to find hope and not kill themselves. And if you watch the end of the documentary, when you see his son crying, you just go, wow. I mean, this has residual effects. I hope this 40-year-old will get over his dad killing, and he isn't over it yet. Is that a
And
strong enough call to action? Before you stop this podcast, get your stinking wallet out and cut some money to help us save guys from commit suicide. Please. You go to Rob Rose, ROBROWS, the number 4, vets, VETS, robrose4vets.org. And that's a website, and you can donate. And if I can, I'll write you and say thank you very much. Why'd you do it? And tell me your story. I had a guy this morning off the podcast. It's just not a veteran issue, but I'm doing vets. This guy called me this morning on the podcast. My mom committed suicide and my dad committed suicide. I said, really? He said, yeah, they had issues. I said, how much pain were they carrying? My mom carried a bunch of pain, became bipolar, and shot herself. And my dad then went ahead and killed himself. Then another guy contacts me this morning and says, I have bipolar, and the number one issue with bipolar is suicide.
yes.
And I want you to know if I can help, because most of my bipolar friends that have died are all suicides. And I've had bipolar stuff for 40 years. It's really hard to function in the society with the stigma of having a corporate job by big bipolar on meds and this and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you for what you did. And he started crying, And I went, there's just a lot of folks that are working through pain. And you go to Rob Rose for Vets. My website is my name. It's Robert Hamilton Owens.com. Robert Hamilton Owens. Why Robert Hamilton? Because there's a lot of Robert Owenses, and I had to differentiate myself from the 10,000 Robert Owenses out there. Put my middle name in so people could find me.
So I have a diverse audience. This will live in all eternity. I don't want this to just be the year that it was made. I want this to create more awareness for veteran suicide, for the story of Mark Crampton, for the legacy that he's leaving, and what our friend Robert Hamilton Owens is doing. But I also want to know if somebody who represents a corporation, I'm on the corporation side. My clients are big corporations, Fortune 500s. So those are big sponsorships. And you say $350,000 is what you need. I'm pretty sure that $100, which I gave last night from my own company, from the profits of the podcast.
You sure did, and thank you very much.
Oh, I'm not baiting you, but thank you so much. I would love to do a call to action for some of these folks aligned to companies to band together and do a year. And $350,000 to a company that's making 7 to 12 billion is a drop in the bucket. Now,
Drop in the bucket.
Their corporate people, their corporate affairs people might argue with me, but even a portion of that could be significant. Tell me how they could get involved if they were that big corporate sponsor. Would they be able to help direct the program? Obviously, their name is going to get out there, but what does that look like?
They can have input. They can come watch, be a part. Many guys on the outside say, "Can I sit on the small group and just watch the guys?" And we say to the vets, "Can somebody come in and watch?" And if they say, "Yeah," then you come and sit and watch, and you get to listen, talk, be a part, see it, smell it, and then walk away and say, "Wow." And we say, "Wow, what do you think?" And the standard thing is come and see. Come and see what's going on, and it'll break your heart. You'll want to do something. They can contact Mark Devine, the founder of Courage Foundation, Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine, who's founded SEAL Fit and Unbeatable Mind and has 6 books out. And many folks know, he and Goggins and Jocko and, they all hang together. And so they can get a hold of Mark and just say, "Hey, Mark, I want to be a part." And he'll say, "Great, what do you want to do?" It's the Courage Foundation USA.
So open your checkbooks. Definitely, I feel like we're on a fundraiser call, even though this isn't live. As someone who sat in the corporate side for many years, both HR, marketing, communications, I know that there are matching programs. So, I felt bad just giving $100, but if I was aligned to a corporation and not my own business or my own podcast, I would be able to go to their corporate cares department because there's often matching programs. So, and corporations want to know about these programs. They just don't.
Companies are looking for places to make impact and tell a story and do something good and get write-offs. And so we would welcome those kind of companies that would say, yeah, we don't know about it. Help us know about it. Just like Green Bay Packers invited him in at halftime to stand up and say, we didn't know anything about it. Thank you so much. We've been around. People have been commit suicide in Wisconsin for a long time, but you just didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm. Where are the folks that you're flying in? Where are they? Are they with Mark and you in Southern California, or are they in another
Yeah.
state?
No, we fly them in. Usually we fly them into Carlsbad, California, put
Okay.
them in a nice 4-star hotel with wife or husband, whatever it is, and let them feel comfortable and ask if they feel comfortable. And then we say, this is the process over the next year we want to work with you in. And you sign a commitment that you want to let your stuff be worked on. And we do physical fitness, we do yoga, we do all kinds of stuff. If you know Mark Divine, you're going to be doing a lot of burpees. You're going to be losing weight. you're, you're, you're going to be doing planks. I mean, he had me doing planks for an hour. And the last time I was with all these business folks, these get on a plank. These different kinds of folks said, what's a plank? And then there were guys puking by the end. He said, you're going to get in shape. It's mind and spirit and body. And it starts with discipline. And, these vets get back in shape and they get loved on. And it's a fun transition. I've been with SEAL Fit for 12 years, and I came in doing a corporate thing. I remember the day he was out on the grinder, our grinder, and he said, "Get the plank." And somebody said, "How long are you gonna stay here?" He said, "Oh, you'll probably be here about an hour." We all looked up, like, really? And then he got the plank position, did it with us, and yelled at us while we were doing it. And I thought, well, this is crazy. But you figure it out pretty quick, or you get out. Can I say something?
You can.
I would really like the listeners to write you and tell you what they think of this program. That Owens guy was nuts, or this touched me, or, I really would like them to give you feedback on this and the kind of guests that they want you to have that they find interesting. Number one. Number two, you have some Romanian constituents who listen to you, right?
I do.
When I got out of special ops, what I did was I went into smuggling into Eastern Europe. And so I left special ops there and I went into a ministry that we smuggled Christian literature in. And then we got political documents out under the Carter administration, under the Helsinki Peace Accords, where the Russians were violating the SS-22s and putting the nuclear warheads on the SS-22s illegally. And we would go in and get those documents out to the West. And so my first trip to Romania was in 1978. And back then, it was poverty in the worst way. And people lived in mud huts with pipes sticking out of the top on the main streets. So you went in, they got a piece of wood, made a door, and there's snow on the ground. And then there's this billowing black smoke, 100 little black smokestacks like Mary Poppins or something. And then the people wore all black and gray because they were all covered with soot when they came out. And we smuggled in and we smuggled out of Romania, Timisoara, Bucharest, Cluj. We were all over the place. And remember when the wall came down and how it started off in Romania. When the Berlin Wall came down, it started off in Romania when they went after the Baptist pastor, I think in Timisoara. And the people rioted, went and got Ceausescu and shot him in his castle. So those were interesting days in Romania. And I want to say hi to all your Romanian friends over there. I love Romania. It's always fun to come.
Well, I don't want you to stop talking, and I want you to fill the rest of the hour. So, Scott McGregor said something funny from the Outlier Project, which is how I met you. Because I'm a new member. He said, just give him a microphone. He's going to be fine, Cheryl. Just ask him one question and let him roll. So why don't you go ahead and use the next 4 or 5 minutes to tell whatever you'd like. And it does not have to be a call to action, but if you want, go for it. The stage is yours.
When I talk about deal with your issues or issues will deal with you, I was sexually abused twice in 7th grade and 8th grade. And because of that, I started drinking a lot. And I drank till I was 20 and crashed cars and went to jail and blah, blah, blah. Even during high school, water polo, swimming, drinking on the weekends and stuff. And so when people say to me, hey, Robert, how did Mark just go kill himself? Or the dam broke, and they don't teach how people how to let the dam out slowly, but it breaks all at once, and boom, you commit suicide. And I know how that works. When I was about 63, 64, I'm speaking to sexual abuse people. And my little voice conscience inside, if I'm a Christian, it's the Holy Spirit, it says to me, hey, when are you going to deal with your stuff? And I said, I'm talking to all these sexual abuse people on how to get healed and how to work through their stuff, process. And all of a sudden, I'm just stopped in the middle of my comment. I don't know. Never thought about it. Well, why was it that I never thought about it? Because my pain, fighting my way out of a tent, who are guys who are trying to initiate me, I put it on lockdown. And I stuffed it way back there and turned the key. And for 50 years, I never once thought about me being screwed up. So when my wife says to me, you're not too touchy-feely. I don't know. Did your dad ever hug you? I got my first hug at 50. He was 70 because his dad never hugged him, never touched him.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this stuff began to, the lock is beginning to shake, and that stuff wants to come out. 50 years of denial. And people said, what are you doing, Robert? And I said, I'm having an epiphany. I'm screwed up. I got 5 kids. I've pastored a church of 3,000 people. I've ministered to all these people after the military. Abuse, suicide and stuff. Never once did I think I got stuff. And then someone said, do you want to deal with it? And I said, I'm not sure how to start. At 60-something years old. I don't want to go back to the moment. I don't want to hear what I hear. I don't want to pull that thing back up. I don't want to go there. Well, I need to go there. That stuff's going to come up sooner or later in your life. And when Mark Crampton's thing began to shake, oh my God, the lock's going to break. When it came out so potently, he took his life. There are many of you listening to me that are wounded. You're carrying your drama and your wounds with you, and you're doing stuff, maybe because you don't know why you're doing stuff, but it's because pain makes people sick. And if you carry it too long, it can do things to you. So I'm saying to you out there, when I talk about this stuff, it's because I've had pain in my life, from the adoption, the special needs, being sexually abused, having a mom that's sick. I pack stuff away, and people say to me, why do you think you do what you do? I mean, you're extreme. Why do you do what you do? I don't know, I just like it. No, it's because I was sick. I was sick because I wanted to prove that I was a man and I could do stuff. So I did extra manly things to make sure that I had self-worth among men, because I had poor self-worth. And a lot of people do extraordinary things because they're so messed up inside. Because they're overdoing, because there's something driving them. Once I figured that out, that I was messed up, I needed help, well, then I dealt with some of that stuff, but not the sexual abuse one. And then I found I just liked doing it anyway. So I just kept doing it, but it wasn't driven by the same pain that I had when people said to me, do we have to have him on our team? Do we have to have, can we, I'll pick him, you pick him, you pick him. Do we have to have him on the team? And you play by yourself for 5 years in grammar school, hitting the tetherball around because you can't run. There's pain. So you could take the pain and make something positive. But sometimes that pain will take you negative.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's got stuff. Everybody. You, me, we all have hurts. There's no perfect family, no perfect life. No, nothing's perfect. It's how you handle your stuff. And I chose to do it through athletics and special ops and all that. And once I figured out why I was doing all that, oh, well, I still like it anyway, but I don't have the same reason. Well, some people don't know why they do what they do. Mark's, and he killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone listening, we all got stuff. That's what I want to say at the end. I want to help people. I want you guys to thrive, prosper. And I don't want you just to survive in life.
You know, we've come full circle on the word pain, and from my notes, I just want to share. At the beginning of this hour, we were talking about the incredible documentary that you have, One is Too Many, which you all can find on YouTube. As an endurance athlete, you said, miserable and pain don't kill you. Then we started talking a little bit deeper, and you said, hurt people hurt people. So people who are hurt others. And then pain, when it really manifests, will make you sick. So think of this as the journey of Robert Hamilton Owens, and his message, I think, for us today is pain can be dealt with, but if it isn't, you need to seek help, because
Yeah.
it will hurt others, and will eventually kill you, either through
Yeah.
illness or depression, or you name the blank. So thank you, Robert.
It's a good summation. And I've had, I guess, lots of pain in my life, and I found a way to do things that are socially acceptable with it versus things that are unsocially acceptable with it, and made a living out of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a trip looking back at 72. It's just like, wow, this has been a wild ride.
We've been listening to Robert Hamilton Owens, a beautiful hour of him being incredibly brave, vulnerable, and honest, which is who he is every single day. I think if you know who he is or have read his book, which is, I've written so many things around it, Beyond Average, I believe your next book should be called Wet and Sandy, just so you know.
Well, I like to keep kids wet and sandy. I don't do too much of it anymore. I don't have to, but I love to see them in the ocean and just all night wet and sandy. It's fun to see kids grow.
Your story is very powerful. I know that you're going to continue finding adventure and helping people. The work that you're doing through the documentary and through Mark Devine's company and foundation is called
Courage Foundation USA.
There we go. And you can reach out to Robert through Rob, R-O-B, R-O-W-S, the number 4, VETS
.org.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
You bet.
And now, if I could be mean and hardcore, now get out your money and give me some money, please. We got some guys to work on, and ladies, and we need your help. So don't just say, "Oh, it's a nice pot." Give me some money. I need some money. Thank you very much.
I told Robert that we were not going to do this unless he had a call to action. So he's been working on this all day. Right on. But yeah. And by the way, don't think that you have to do this only from your own bank account. This is a wonderful way to engage other people and companies on doing things that they want to do. They just don't have the exposure. So let's spread the word. Thank you so much. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks for having me, Carol.
Thank you for being here. And we'll be talking to you again soon. I'm Cheryl Cross.
Aloha.
Aloha. I'm Cheryl Cross, and I am your host. This is the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. We have not talked about careers. What we're talking about in the special feature with one person is the after effects of PTSD, veteran suicide, and it's just been an honor. Thank you so much for joining us, and bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Hi, I'm Mark Devine, retired Navy SEAL, CEO of SEALFIT, and founder of the Mark Devine Courage Foundation. It's estimated that over 500,000 veterans return home from combat suffering with post-traumatic stress. Fewer than half of the soldiers who report symptoms of combat-related PTS receive the care that they need. Many soldiers that begin treatment will walk away before its completion. I believe they need an integrated approach to treatment. That's why I created the Veteran Integration Program. If you want to learn more, please visit CourageFoundationUSA.com. CourageFoundationUSA.org. That's CourageFoundationUSA.org. Thank you, Cheryl, and the Exchange podcast team for highlighting the story of Robert Owens and the Courage Foundation. If you're listening to this or watching, I urge you not to let this moment pass as just another story heard. This is a clarion call for action, a plea to stand with our veterans who face the unseen enemy of post-traumatic stress every single day. Now is the time to act. Share the story far and wide. Post it, like it, talk about it. Connect with others who can amplify the message. We're seeking corporate sponsors to help fund vital programs for our veterans, programs that need up to $300,000 a year to change lives. Your efforts in spreading the word can open doors to significant sponsorship and donations. Remember, each share, each conversation, each connection you make has the power to transform lives. Visit the Courage Foundation website, that's CourageFoundationUSA.org, to learn about our mission to become a beacon of hope for those who stood on the front lines with us. Your support, your voice can make all the difference. Let's unite in this mission. Let's stand together for our veterans and help save lives. Again, visit us at CourageFoundationUSA.org. Hoo-yah.